Welcome children to my second class. So before I start with my second class, a short prayer. We'll have a short prayer. Oh God, be merciful to us. Keep us covered under your wings. Give us good health. And during this lockdown, may we be able to make books as our friends. May we be able to derive benefit from the online classes. Help us, oh God, keep us safe. Thank you. Now the third topic that I am going to deal with is the supporters of vernacular and Western education. So there were both Indians as well as the missionaries who were interested to spread education, and they were interested to spread vernacular as well as Western education. So the first person is David Hare. It was David Hare who built the Hindu College in 1817, and people belonging to the rich family used to send their children to the Hindu College to study science. And David Hare, he established the School Book Society, and the School Book Society used to publish textbooks, and he also established the School Society for the emancipation and for the development of women. Then the next person is Drinkwater Bethune. He is also a missionary, and Drinkwater Bethune was a person who established the Bethune School, which later on came to be known as the Bethune College. And it was Vidyasagar who helped, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, who helped Drinkwater Bethune to run the school and the college. And Drinkwater Bethune specially gave importance to education and emancipation of women. Then the next person is Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar helped Drinkwater Bethune to establish the college and the school, and many schools were established by him, and also it was run on his own expense. He was a very generous person. So on his own expense, he also ran many schools for the girls. Then the next person, as I have already told, is Rajaram Mohan Roy, and Rajaram Mohan Roy is known as the father of modern India, because he was the person who said India will be modern only if we give Western education, or if we start Western education, then only India will become modern. That is why he is known as the first modern, he is known as the first modern man. And he was the person who established the Hindu school in 1822, and he wrote letter to the British government to send very competent teachers. As a result, the British government sent Alexander Doe to teach English in India. So this is about Rajaram Mohan Roy. Then another person who wanted the spread of Western education was Radhakanta Dev. And Radhakanta Dev was a Hindu, but though he was a Hindu, he gave importance to science as well as to Western education. And he had a very important hand in framing the rules and regulations of the Hindu college. And it was during his time that Henry Louis Vivian d'Erasio, who was ultra radical, who wanted complete change, that person, Henry Louis Vivian d'Erasio, he was the professor of the Hindu college, and he was dismissed because of his ultra radical views during the time of Radhakanta Dev. And Radhakanta Dev gave importance to education, and he said it is the responsibility of the teachers. Responsibility of the teachers not only to impart education to the children, academics to the children, but to give importance to the values of life. It is the duty of the teachers to teach values of life to the children. Values of gratefulness, thankfulness, mercy, generosity, love. So these values should be instilled to the students by the teachers. So the teachers have a very important role to play in the society. And Radhakanta Dev was the person who also liberally aided and raised the fund to send children, to send students abroad to England to study about medicine and surgery. And the next educator was Madhusudan Gupta, and Madhusudan Gupta was a lecturer in the medical college, and at that time it was a taboo. That means people were restricted from touching dead bodies, but he got inspiration from many of his friends, and it is believed that on 10th of January 1836 he dissected the dead body and he wrote a book on the anatomy of the about the human body or human beings. So he wrote a book on anatomy, and not only that, he also wrote a book on hygiene. Today hygiene has become so important, especially in these corona days. Hygiene is very important. I have the sanitizer here just for hygiene. It is said, even in the advertisement they say we have to wash our hands again and again. So hygiene, which we are following now, was following during the 19th century, because a book was written by Madhusudan Gupta regarding hygiene. So with this I have finished about the supporters of vernacular and Western education. Now the next topic that I will be dealing is about the reform movement in Bengal. Reform means what? Reform means change, to remove the evils, to bring betterment in the society, to bring progress in the society. So reform movement first started in Bengal. Nowhere did reform movement start in any part of India. Neither it started first in Maharashtra nor in Punjab. They followed later on. But reform movement started first in Bengal. And at that time, this movement was first started by no other than the famous person, the modern man of India. He was Raja Ram Mohan Roy. He was the person who in 1815 Raja Ram Mohan Roy founded the Atmiya Sabha, and this Atmiya Sabha was transformed into Brahmo Sabha in 1828, and in 1830 it was again transformed into Brahmo Samaj, and the main aim of the Brahmo Samaj was to worship only one God, to stop worshipping idols, tolerance, to protest against casteism, against casteism. So various, he wanted to remove the ills of the society, all the ills he wanted to do away in the society. So that was about the Brahmo Samaj. Now what happened is that Raja Ram Mohan Roy did not remain in India for long. He went to England in 1833. So now the charge of Brahmo Samaj was taken up by Devendranath Tagore, and Devendranath Tagore was the person who started the Tattvabodhini Sabha, and also he started the Tattvabodhini Patrika, and Tattvabodhini Sabha was started in 1839 and Tattvabodhini Patrika was started in 1843. And the editor of this Tattvabodhini Patrika was Akshay Kumar Datta. It is not Akshay Kumar only. I am not talking about the film hero who donated 25 crores of rupees to the government to aid the patient for the COVID-19. But I am talking about Akshay Kumar Datta, who was the editor of the Tattvabodhini Patrika. And slowly what happened is that in 1857, many people got very much attracted to the Brahmo Samaj, like Keshav Chandra Sen. he was a very good orator. So he also joined in the Brahmo Samaj, and Devendranath Tagore and Keshav Chandra Sen had a very good rapport. They had a very good relation at the beginning. But slowly, with the passage of time, there was a rift between Devendranath Tagore and Keshav Chandra Sen, because Keshav Chandra Sen wanted to give importance to social reforms. He formed Sambat Sabha, Sangat Sabha, in order to help the people who were stricken by the famine. Whereas Devendranath Tagore did not want to give importance to social reforms. He didn't want social reforms to be, linked with Brahmo Samaj. So as a result, there was a rift, differences between Keshav Chandra Sen and Devendranath Tagore. So both of them left the Brahmo Samaj and they joined other group. They formed another group, and the group that Devendranath Tagore formed was the Adi Brahmo Samaj, and Keshav Chandra Sen joined the Brahmo Samaj of India in 1865. Then slowly other people like Vijay Krishna Goswami also got very interested to join in the Brahmo Samaj, and so Vijay Krishna Goswami also joined. But slowly he was attracted to the personality of Keshav Chandra Sen, but slowly he also came into a rift, differences with Keshav Chandra Sen. So he also parted away, he also left the Brahmo Samaj of India, and then he formed the Sadharan Brahmo Samaj in 1878, sorry, in 1878 he joined in, he formed the Sadharan Brahmo Samaj. Then after that, Keshav Chandra Sen also parted away from the Brahmo Samaj of India, and he formed the Nababidhan in 1880-81. So this way the Brahmo Samaj played a very important role in the society. So this is about Brahmo Samaj. Now I am going to do about another reform or the reformer, and his name is Henry Louis Vivian d'Orazio. Henry Vivian Louis d'Orazio was another reformer of Bengal beside Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Devendranath Tagore, Keshav Chandra Sen. Henry Louis Vivian d'Orazio was another person, and he actually belonged to the Portuguese Indian family. He was an Anglo-Indian, and his followers are known as Young Bengal. They are known as the d'Orazians, and he became the professor of the Hindu college at a very early age. He became the professor when he was just 17 years of age, and he worked only for 3 years, and at the age of 23 he died a premature death. And he was the person, Henry Louis Vivian d'Orazio was a person who brought about reawakening in Bengal. He formed the Academic Association in 1828, and he gave a lot of importance to the virtues like patriotism, nationalism, to live and die for truth. He wanted people to give up all the vices of meanness, corruption and all that. And he also wrote magazines. Not he, but the group, his group were known as Young Bengal, the d'Orazians. So the group Young Bengals wrote the magazine called the Bengal Spectator, Parthenon, Gana Nation, and this person, Henry Louis Vivian d'Orazio, he is also credited for having written the Fakir of Junjira, which is a patriotic poem, and also another patriotic poem was To India, My Native Land, and it was written by this person, Henry Louis Vivian d'Orazio. And I told you just now when I was explaining about Radhakanta Dev that he was dismissed from the college. So the main reason why he was dismissed from the college was because of his ultra radical views. He wanted complete change, whereas the society was very conservative at that time. So because of his ultra radical views, he was dismissed from the college. And what was his ultra radical views? The ultra radical views was that, the Brahmins, they wear sacred thread. It is called Janai. But he did not approve of the Janai. He didn't believe in Janai. So he did not allow the Brahmins who were wearing Janai to preach about their religion. So that was one drawback. Another was, he shouted at the Brahmins, telling them that we will eat beef. And in the Hindu religion, cow is regarded as sacred. So, when he shouted at the Brahmins, it was a kind of an insult. So, people did not like. And another thing, he did not give importance to prayer. And prayer is something, even today, it's something through which we can, have connection with God. But he did not give any importance to prayer. So, because of all these radical views, and beside that, there were others also, which led to the dismissal of Henry Louis Vivian D'Orazio from the Hindu College. Then, so these all are the reformers of Bengal. Beside that, we also have other reformers. I will deal with the other reformers. But before that, I will deal little bit about the reformers as well as the movement that was very common in India during the 19th century, and that is about the anti-sati movement. So what happened is that at that time, I told you, girls were married at a very early age. Even at the age of 4, they were married. And naturally, when their husband died, they had to offer themselves as sati. That means they had to die alive. They had to burn themselves alive in the funeral pyre of their husband. They had to be burnt. And at that time, there was a, rumor that if you die along with your husband, then you will go to heaven. So many women were not educated. They wanted to go to heaven. So naturally, they willingly accepted sati and they became a sati daha. But many did not want to, but it was under compulsion that women had to undergo sati, the sati daha. So it is said that from 1815 to 1828, about 8,000 women from 1815 to 1828 were taken as sati. They offered themselves as sati. And at that time, reformers like William Carey and also Indian reformers like Mrityunjay Vidyalankar, they studied the scriptures. They were very upset to see the sati. So they studied the scriptures and they came to the conclusion that it is not compulsory to go for sati. It is not compulsory. So, this went on at that time. And another thing is there was a magazine called Samachar Darpan, and Samachar Darpan was against sati. It wanted the abolition of sati, but in the society there were many conservatives, very strict people who wanted sati to be continued, and they also edited newspapers like Samachar Chandrika in order to profess and in order to make the sati continue. They published this newspaper called Samachar Chandrika. So this way sati was quite prevalent during those days. And at that time, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, the first modern man, he realized this. He was very upset. He saw many girls were being offered as sati, so he was very upset. So at that time, he started a movement against the abolition of sati. And children, remember, there is a movie in Nepali called Jhola. It is about the sati, how the girls were given as sati. And there was one woman who was taken as sati, but she escapes. She escapes from sati without anyone's notice. And later on, her family comes to know that she had escaped. And the family tries to rescue her from that place. So there is a very beautiful movie in Nepali which is called Jhola. So please, during this lockdown, I hope you will watch and gain some knowledge regarding sati. So it was Raja Ram Mohan Roy who wrote a letter to Lord William Bentinck, a reformer, and he wrote a petition. He also did a signature campaign, made many people sign in the petition, and it was the reformer Lord William Bentinck who took a very bold step to abolish sati, and sati was abolished in 1829 according to Regulation 17. So this is how the anti-sati movement started, and this year in the examination, this particular question, this very question right about the anti-sati movement has come for 8 marks. This particular question has come for 8 marks, the essay type question. So this is about the burning of the widows and sati. Now, the next that I will be doing is about the widows. So now sati was stopped. So naturally there were many women, girls who had become widows, who had lost their husband, who were not remarried. So those people who had lost, those girls who had lost their husband, who were not remarried, were known as the widows. So now I am going to deal about the widows. So these widows, they were really harassed, they suffered, their life was miserable during that time. You know, they had to be bald, chinde, in Nepali we say chinde, chinde hunu parthyo unaru. They had to be bald, they had to wear white sari, and people did not, like to come, did not like to see their face because it was regarded as something unlucky. And they were regarded as inauspicious dependents of the society. Inauspicious dependents of the society means that they were regarded as unlucky sign. So that was the condition and of the widows. And after their husband died, they did not get any inheritance from the husband. They did not get any property of the husband. The property went to the son, not to the widow. So the widow had no property. She had to go and live in the ashram. Condition was miserable. Even girls, 4 or 5 years of age, they had to be bald, wear white sari. A child being a widow. It was miserable. So many people felt very upset. So Maharaja Sri Chandra of Nadia wanted to take a bold step to introduce remarriage of widows. But the conservatives stopped him. The conservatives did not allow him. He was, stopped by the conservatives. As a result, he could not take any bold step. But a very bold step was taken regarding remarriage of widows by this generous person, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, who studied all the scriptures. He studied especially the scripture Parasara Samhita. He studied the sloka, and he came to the conclusion that if the first husband dies, then the girl can be remarried. So he came out with this very important conclusion from the scriptures, the holy scriptures of the Hindus, and he started argumenting. He started arguments with the conservative section of the society. As a result, he came out victorious. And at the time, the Governor General was Lord Canning. In 1856-57, Lord Canning was the Governor General. So he requested Governor General Lord Canning to legalize widow remarriage. As a result, remarriage of widows were enforced. It was legalized, and it was legalized on 26th of July 1856. Now, according to this Act 15, now widows could be remarried. So this is how a very important transformation came about in the society in Bengal. And this person, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, he was very generous, and he got his own son. He had a son Ishan Chandra was the son of Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. So he made his own son Ishan Chandra to marry. He got his own son Ishan Chandra to married to Babu Sundari, who was also a widow. So this way, widow remarriage took place, and that was the second widow remarriage. But the first widow remarriage it took place in the same year, 1856. It took place between Kalimati and Srish Chandra Vidyaratna. And Kalimati was a widow of 13 years. So that was the first widow remarriage ever in the history of Bengal that took place at that time. And this person, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, I told you, was a very generous person. So one thing is that we should learn to be generous from such educationists, from such reformers. We should learn to be generous. He gave 80,000 of his money to get 62 widows married and to start a new life. So this is about the widow remarriage, how it became legalized under the Governor Generalship of Lord Canning and under the effort made by Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. So with this we have come to the end of the next topic, the widows, and now we have two more topics, and that is about again the reformers, Ramakrishna Paramhansa. So Ramakrishna Paramhansa was a very simple person. He was the sage or a sadhu in the temple of Dakshineshwar Kali temple in Kolkata, and his wife was Sharada Devi, and like us, he did not have formal education. Formal education means going to school. He never went to school, but in spite of the fact that he never went to school, he had a huge store of knowledge within him. Because at that time, if any person asked any question on religion, you know, the educated people, the philosophers, the educationists, they couldn't answer, they couldn't give any proper answer, but it was Ramakrishna Paramhansa who gave the answer in a very simple and lucid manner. Very clearly he gave the answer of each and every question related to religion. So he is very famous for that. And beside that, he also is famous for propagating Sarva Dharma Samanya, that is religious harmony. Religious harmony was propagated by him. He said that all religions are the same. Like Kabir. Kabir said that we are the clay of the same pot, but we are following different paths. Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikh, and our goal is the same. We are leading towards the same God. So Ramakrishna Paramahansa also meant the same thing, that we are following different paths, but our goal is the same. We call that same God as Allah, same God as Ram, Jesus, Buddha, but God is one. So Sarva Dharma Samanya was propagated by Ramakrishna Paramhansa. Then he had his disciple. The disciple was Swami Vivekananda, and Swami Vivekananda was a very famous sadhu, very famous sage, the disciple of Ramakrishna Paramhansa, and he was the person who gave importance to Neo-Vedantism. Neo means new Vedanta. What he did is that he remodeled the Advaita Vedanta of Shankara with modern language to suit the needs of a modern man, and that the modification of the Advaita Vedanta of Shankara came to be known as Neo-Vedantism. So he was the one to start Neo-Vedantism. And Swami Vivekananda divided it into two parts. He said past of India was glorious, and he said present, that present is not as glorious, because he said that the Hindus, They are superstitious, they lack manliness, they lack manliness, they have the attitude of a slave, they are jealous of each other, they are selfish. So he wanted people, the Hindus, to rise from all these vices and to become a good citizen. And regarding the past, he said that Hinduism is full of spiritualism. And he said that if India wants to conquer the world, then we have to learn about technology from the West. So if we learn about technology, we already have spiritualism, and if we fuse spiritualism with technology, then India will be able to conquer the whole world. So that was the message of this great personality, Swami Vivekananda. And he also started Ramakrishna Mission in 1897, and even today Ramakrishna Mission is doing a lot for the welfare and benefit of the society. And Swami Vivekananda is credited with another achievement, and that is he went to Chicago in 1893 in America. And in Chicago he attended the religious conference, the Conference of Religion, and in that he was able to explain about the spiritualism of India, the Hinduism, and he was able to make the people aware that Hinduism is not a bundle of superstitions. So that way he was able to make the people aware. So there is lots that we have to learn from history. All these are academics, but we need to learn the values of life, to be generous, to be a good citizen, to be humanitarian, to be tolerant. So these are the lessons that we should learn from history. And now the last topic is left from the second chapter, and that is about Renozo in Bengal. And one thing I would like to say is, just now I finished about Ramakrishna Paramahansa, the Sarva Dharma Samanya, and this question also came this year for 4 marks. Anti-Sati movement came for 8 marks, Ramakrishna Sarva Dharma Samanya came for 4 marks. So now the last topic that I would like to deal is about Renozo in Bengal. Renozo in Bengal. What does Renozo mean? Renozo means it means rebirth, it means development, progress of culture, progress of political progress, economic progress, all types of progress, like progress of art, architecture, culture. So, Renozo of Bengal we are going to do. So, it is said that in the same century, 19th century Bengal, there was Renozo in Bengal. And there was also Renozo in Europe in the 16th century. So many people, when they say Renozo in Bengal, they want to compare Renozo in Bengal with that of Europe. So they say, when they compare Renozo in Bengal with that of Europe, they say that Renozo in Bengal, when Renozo was there in Bengal, they say that, there was no scope for Renozo in Bengal. When they compare Renozo in Europe, they say that whatever scope was there in Renozo of Europe, there was no, same scope was not there in Renozo of. Another thing they say, that in Europe there was resurgence, revival, like for instance, discovery of geographical discoveries were there, reformation were there, but such resurgence did not take place in Bengal. And another point, they say that during that time in the 19th century, Bengal was under the subjection, under the subjugation or the control of the British colonial rulers. So there was no freedom, but in Europe there was a lot of freedom. So Renozo in Europe flourished in a very free atmosphere, whereas that atmosphere was not in Bengal. And even Amalesh Tripathi refuses to accept Renozo in Bengal. And he says that, you know, Rhinoceros in Bengal is fake. But whatever it is, there was Rhinoceros in Bengal. You have to say there was Rhinoceros in Bengal because it started in Bengal. And at that time there was cultural decline, social decline, but Bengal did come out of the stagnation. Bengal did make progress. Bengal did come out of the subjugation of the British and made progress. So there was Rhinoceros in Bengal. And the last point is that Rhinoceros started in Bengal because the main center of the British was in Kolkata. And Kolkata at that time was the capital of India. Now we have capital in Delhi, but at that time till 1912, Kolkata was the capital of India. So they say that it started in Bengal during the British rule, and it spread to other places. It spread to Bombay, it spread to Madras. So this way, you know, there was a Rhinoceros in Bengal. So I finished the whole chapter, and so since this question came, anti-sati movement, it will not be so important for long, but it might come for objectives. And this also, Sarva Dharma Samanya also will not be so important, but you should know a little bit about Sarva Dharma Samanya. Beside that, everything else is very, very important for your board exams. You should not leave anything because a lot of questions are set from this particular chapter. And regarding the marks division, you have 5 types of questions. The first question is multiple choice question, where you just have to put a tick and you get 20 questions. You have to put a tick, you get 20 questions, and out of, you get 20 questions, you have to do 20 questions, it carries 20 marks. So, the first group, multiple choice question. Multiple choice question carries 20 marks, each question carrying 1 mark. Then you have short answer questions. You have to do 16 questions, each carrying 1 mark. You just have to write 1 line, 2 lines. Then next is question carrying 2 marks, and here you have to do 11 questions, each carrying 2 marks means you get 2 marks means there is 22. You get total is 22. Then question carrying 4 marks, you get 6. You have to do 6 questions, so it is 24. And the last essay type question is you have to do, it carries 8 marks, and you have to do only 8. So see, 20 plus 16 plus 22 plus 24 plus 8 makes 90. So your paper is set on 90 marks. And 10 is about the IFE, the project. And so this is about the marks division, and with this I have come to the end of the chapter. And if you find any difficulties, you can contact with your teachers and ask them about this chapter. So before I end, I would just like to tell you something, and that is you see, the government is doing so much for us, so we should follow the rules and regulations of the lockdown, maintain social distancing, stay at home, try to be safe, stay at home. And I would like to just sing just 2 lines, a song, just 2 lines, because we want our Mother Earth to heal as early as possible. So the song, I will start, just 2 lines. Heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the class.